Welcome back to day 60. Today we're diving into a powerful moment from Numbers 14 and 15, where the Israelites face doubt, rebellion, and God's complex response. What strikes you most about their reaction to the Promised Land?
Honestly, it's that deep fear and regret. They'd rather go back to Egypt where they were slaves than face the unknown. It's like choosing the comfort of chains over the risk of freedom.
Exactly. That's a hard choice to imagine. Why do you think they felt so overwhelmed by the challenges ahead, even after all they'd witnessed?
I think it's human nature. Even when we see miracles, fear can cloud our vision. They saw giants and fortified cities and thought, we can't win. It's a classic case of letting fear override faith.
And then you have Joshua and Caleb, who tried to rally the people with hope. Their message was clear: the land is good, and God is with us. Why do you think their encouragement was rejected so harshly?
Probably because hope requires courage and the crowd was in full panic mode. Also, groupthink can be brutal. When everyone's scared, the voice of reason often gets shouted down or even threatened, as we see when they almost stone Joshua and Caleb.
That moment really shows the tension between faith and fear. But what about God's response? He's angry, but also forgiving. How do you interpret that?
It's fascinating. God's anger reflects justice. People can't keep rejecting him without consequence. But his forgiveness shows mercy. Moses' intercession is key here, reminding God of his reputation and character. It's like a cosmic negotiation.
Moses' defense is compelling. He worries about what other nations will think if God destroys his people after promising them the land. It's an interesting mix of leadership and diplomacy.
Right, Moses steps in as a mediator, appealing to God's patience and love. That line about God being slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness is so comforting. It reminds us that even in frustration, there's room for grace.
Yet there's still a consequence. The Israelites who doubted won't enter the land except for Caleb and Joshua. What does that teach us about accountability?
It shows that faith has real stakes. Belief isn't just a warm feeling, it leads to action and consequences. Caleb and Joshua's different spirit earned them entry. It's a reminder that wholehearted commitment matters.
Speaking of commitment, Numbers 15 introduces detailed instructions about offerings and laws, including the fringes on their garments. What role do these rituals play in the broader story?
They serve as tangible reminders of God's commandments and presence. The fringes, especially with the blue cord, are like a wearable memory device, helping people remember to stay faithful and not wander after their own desires.
It's interesting how physical symbols can anchor spiritual lessons. Do you think these practices are relevant today?
Absolutely, though maybe not the exact rituals. We all need reminders, whether it's a daily prayer, a symbol, or community, to keep us aligned with our values and faith.
The story about the man gathering sticks on the Sabbath is intense. His punishment was death by stoning. What's your take on that?
It's jarring for sure, but I see it as emphasizing the seriousness of sacred time and obedience. Sabbath was a covenant sign, and breaking it threatened the community's spiritual health.
True. But it also feels harsh by modern standards. How do we reconcile such strict laws with today's understanding of justice?
Context matters. Back then, the community's survival depended on strict obedience. Today, we balance justice with mercy differently, but the core idea is respecting what's holy and communal boundaries.
That makes sense. Back to Numbers 14. The Israelites' children are told they will wander for 40 years. How does this generational consequence fit into the story?
It's a tough lesson about the ripple effects of sin and rebellion. The older generation's choices affect their children, but God also promises to bring the children into the land. It's a mix of judgment and hope.
That's profound. It reminds me that our actions today can shape the future in ways we might not immediately see.
Exactly. And those 40 years of wandering symbolize a time of growth and learning, preparing the next generation for the promise ahead.
Wrapping up, what do you think is the key takeaway from these chapters for listeners today?
I'd say it's about the tension between fear and faith, the importance of community obedience, and the balance between justice and mercy. It challenges us to trust even when the future looks uncertain.
And perhaps to remember that forgiveness is always possible, but faith requires courage and commitment.
Definitely. It's a timeless message, one that invites us to reflect on our own doubts and hopes.
Maybe we all need a little Caleb and Joshua spirit inside us.
Or at least the reminder on our spiritual fringes to keep us on track.
Thanks for this deep dive. Let's leave our listeners with a question. In moments of fear and uncertainty, how can we cultivate the courage to trust and move forward?
That's a great question. Hopefully it sparks some thoughtful reflection.
Until next time, stay curious and courageous.
and keep the faith alive. God bless.